preview guide that I think is worth calling out. That's going to have a lot of me and Connor's season-long predictions, player-specific predictions. That's going to hit Tuesday of next week for War Room and Thursday for everyone, so plenty in advance of week 1. What's your off the top of the head Rodgers total touchdown passes this year?
29.
Wow, that's a little low. That's a little Fitzpatrick keeping the season record.
I pray he goes over that. There's nothing would make me happier than getting Fitzpatrick off the record books. I'll say 29. I'll say that he miss it. That bakes in him missing a game or two, right? Like, hey, the ankle's a little sore this week. We're going to let Tyrod go. Full
CR?
If you lock me in the full season, I think he can get to 34, 33. What do you think?
First off, the roster just dropped. So we lasted to, we're going to be able to read through it. So bring it up. Let's get ready to read through it. Thank you, Israel, for everyone tag
for 3 days.
Hour and 5 minutes. I'm going to set the all-time record. Looks like Izzy made it initially, but we'll go through the whole thing here to wrap it. Also, Yeboah and Leaky. All right. Let me put a bow on our last conversation. I think Rodgers is 35 to 36 touchdown passes.
Okay.
That's what I'm going with. I'll put the over at 34.5 and narrowly take the over.
God, I hope you're right.
All right. Looks like Brownlee made the roster as well. They won't sell the Badlands stock. Let's see if we can get the full list up here and just rip through it. But the early returns, Izzy made it, Brownlee made it. Fotu and Yeboah to injured reserve. We have the first 4 weeks of the season to activate them, so that's relatively interesting.
It's
surprising.
Dimitri Patterson feel the Fotu right now.
Yes, is he real? Are we ever going to see him?
I haven't seen anything from him.
Jordan Travis. This is not surprising in any capacity that we got him on the list. The waived release list. I'm looking for any of the most shocking names. Ferkser didn't make it. Jake Hansen didn't make it. Bruce Hector didn't make it. Hines, who they just signed, didn't make it. Jalen Holmes didn't make it. Jalen Key, draft pick, didn't make it. Kuntz, no surprise. Martinez didn't make it, although he'll be practice squad candidate. Same with Peasley. Siebert got cut. No draft collateral for him. Tanzel Smart, he'll find a way to hang around. Preseason darling, Brandon Smith cut. No real shockers there. What are some of your initial reactions from what you're seeing in the first 53 here?
Well, Smart gets released, so he has enough years where he doesn't go to waivers, and I feel like he's a guy that they're like, hey, our first injury, we'll call you up from the practice squad. It's probably how they got him back last year. There's no surprises here. They literally kept everyone.
It's so chalk. It's like the chalkiest roster ever, which is not a bad thing.
No, they found a way to keep everyone, which is really great that they kept Izzy. They kept all the young defensive linemen. I guess the variable because Will and I were doing the math, and we were like, well, if they keep Tack and they keep Leonard Taylor, only one of McGregor or Watts can make it. But the math we didn't do is that Fotu was going to go on the IR. With Fotu on the IR, you had the spot. Now, what we don't have is if Reddick comes back, somebody's got to go still.
Yes.
I still think it should be Watts, but there's not really. So Ferkser made it, right?
Ferkser didn't make it. Ferkser
didn't make it. No, he didn't. He got cut. Okay.
He got cut, and Yeboah is on injured reserve. They only have 2 tight ends right now, which means roster moves are coming, I feel. Also only carrying 2 quarterbacks right now, not overly surprising.
So 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends. We think this team is going to use a fullback. Is my dream of Ruckert just playing fullback here?
They're just leaving them with the 1 full tight end, and that's it?
Or is Braylon Allen also going to play fullback?
God,
which would be the
package.
Funniest thing. We've been podcasting so long that the sun is setting, and I haven't turned my blinds, so you could just see
hydration here.
No hydration. You could just see a beam, just blasting me right now.
I'm down to needing my glasses because I've been waiting and refreshing so much
right
here.
Now. I haven't set up my new space obviously at all. So listen, this is in a great way really boring.
Yes.
Really boring.
Well,
roster.
So you were right on Izzy stuck. So they're carrying the extra running backs. Our favorite Irv Charles has made it. Brownlee made it, which means 7 receivers to start.
Which is insane when you don't even have more than 3 good ones.
Yes. It's
but
a little...
They found a way to do it, so it's kind of hard to kill him for it. I think my take is when Reddick comes back, I might just cut Charles.
Yes.
Do you think they try to get Hardy back? Hardy got cut by the Browns.
I saw that, and I would absolutely not hate going to get him back because we know how we feel about
I'd flip those two. I'd flip Charles for Hardy in a minute.
So the only... And I don't really like cutting Jalen Key. I don't think is particularly newsworthy. He was the last pick in the draft, basically like cutting a UDFA. Instead, they keep a McGregor, they keep a Watts, they keep a Taylor. With the Fotu and Yeboah injuries, Yeboah is more of a special teams player. Those guys could be back after week 1 or week 2. It's only a 4-week window. It's not like the full season IR anymore. But again, just at a second scroll through of the list of cuts, there's really nothing surprising here. I mean, I guess like we'll see what they do with the quarterbacks and which one they put on the practice squad. But again, if we're talking about that in any way, whatever. That's where we got bigger problems then.
Right.
And I agree with some of the sentiment in the Discord here. The only thing that and I'm not surprised that they kept Irv Charles. I wouldn't have kept him. Having the only 2 healthy tight ends feels like there's a couple waiver moves coming, I would have to say. And of course, we know there could be further jockeying with the Reddick situation, but let's take a step back. You only do film rooms on UDFAs you think are going to make the team. Brownlee last year, Leonard Taylor and Watts this year.
Yep.
So we got them all. I'm trying to think from
my guys that make my final 3. So I go up 1 each year. So 2 years ago is the top 300. This year is top 301. Brownlee and Gibson both made it the top 300. Watts, McGregor, and Taylor made the top 301. I have a good UDFA track record, and I had Bryce Huff in the 5th round. I don't always hit in the draft, but my UDFA record right now for the Jets is on a really good pathway.
Let us also call out, because we've made jokes at his expense before, Zaire Barnes made the roster.
And
as did Chaz Surratt.
They made plays.
They're on. Barnes and Surratt are in. Backup linebackers currently carrying 5.
I was going to say, they bubble wrapped Sherwood all summer.
Yeah. So, I mean, special teamers with no Yeboah, Barnes and Surratt make a little more sense because those are like similar special
That's
teams
a good
positions.
Point. Those guys could fly.
So that's not like overly crazy. Offensive line, no surprises. We figured the backups would be Mitchell, Carter Warren, Olu, of course, Wes Newman stuck as I think he earned a spot. So that's 10 that they're carrying there, which most of us were predicting at this point. So I guess what do we say is the biggest surprise that made the team, really? It's the UDFAs ultimately all sticking on the defensive line with Tack. And is it Zaire Barnes making it? Is it Oliver making it at safety? I mean, it's not surprising Stingers made it.
There's no wow on this at all. There's not one single surprise.
And they didn't do like the Jetsy thing where they always have some like super weird decision they make. And we're like, what? Now, no, this roster does feel like it's going to be tweaked the next 5 days, though.
Like Jarius Monroe is the guy that would have been like, oh, they kept Jarius Monroe.
Yeah, there's just all these names we all are familiar with, and we'll spend a couple. We have this pod and a couple more pods this week to bat some of this around, but we are then into okay, these dudes are going to be inactive. Although I think you're right about a guy like Taylor, especially now that Fotu is out. Probably could be inactive week 1. So that's going to be interesting to watch. I feel like Stiggers is inactive week 1 is active week 1 as a special teamer and a backup in the secondary. Brownlee, I don't think will be active. I think he'll be on the roster, but inactive. Charles will be active for specials. I think Braylon and Isaiah Davis start active. Izzy feels like an inactive guy, unless you think they have 4 running backs active. And you're right. You're going to get Rucker at fullback. I mean, how else are you going to shake this out here? I don't think they're going to go out of fullback now.
That'd be really weird. Just play Rucker at fullback. If you want to be an actual fun franchise, play Braylon Allen at fullback.
All All right, final thoughts here because we're at an hour and 13 minutes. As for what we're going to do for War Room tomorrow, I haven't decided yet. I'm probably going to go hydrate and eat dinner and record a video super late tonight. See my family for a little bit.
That sounds like a good plan.
We'll come back. We'll come up with a different bit there. The Jets.
I'll
First off,
FaceTime you from the Jets luncheon for War Room.
That's fair enough here. I think the Jets are in our Discord and knew we started recording at 4:10, and we're like
kept it holding out.
Yeah, we're going to screw with these guys a little bit. So my final thoughts are I would be interested in adding Tim Patrick and Hardy and having them move a guy like Charles and maybe Surratt off the roster. I think that'd be an interesting and potentially exciting pivot to make. Outside of that, I am very excited that there's future defensive line pieces around Quinnen to be excited about, particularly Taylor, who I think we should stop. I know he was a UDFA, but the pedigree of a guy who should have been a day 2 pick, prospectively. Beyond that, it's all about Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, names. Tyron Smith, CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams. So in a good way, an uneventful summer comes to an end, although we're still waiting on a Son Reddick. Final thoughts, CR. Hour 15 minutes. This is like a movie.
The director's cut of Badlands, legitimately roster cut day edition. Listen, it was worth the wait. They didn't do anything. It's always don't do anything stupid, right? That's kind of the theme of roster.
Do no harm.
Cut down day. Do no harm, and they did exactly that. So I'm really happy with this roster. I'm really happy with the guys that on the back end of the roster that made it, the summers that they had, and the promise of them ahead development here under White Cotton and Ulbrich and Saleh. And it just feels like one of their big wins the first couple weeks of the season. It feels like Tack or Taylor will have a moment. That's what it feels like to me.
It feels like to me up 27-6 on Drake May and the Patriots going into the fourth quarter in MetLife, and Tack gets a sack. Leonard Taylor gets a sack. Sal Thomas gets a sack. Everyone's dancing, having fun. Like that Titans game,
hanging out.
It's like that Titans game from a few years ago where the Jets had like 11 sacks in one game. That's what I need, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And how happy, I'll close with how happy is Bob Saleh that they're carrying 10 offensive linemen and 10 defensive linemen without Hassan Reddick even on the roster. Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, Michael Clemens, Tack McKinley, Eric Watts, Brandon McGregor, Quinton Williams, Javon Kinlaw, Leonard Taylor, Solomon Thomas, and Reddick will still be added to this group. They're sick people in a good way on that defensive side of the ball.
It's a good way to build a roster.
Well, listen, we covered everything today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll come up with something to put on the feed for War Room tomorrow. The premiere of Flight Plan will be on Thursday. I'm going to join Zach and Tim for the premiere episode. Buck to Trend Friday, TOJ Talk Saturday, Sunday coffee live from the airport from me before I'm in Italy. And don't worry, someone made some comment Discord like, you still gonna be? Yes, I'll be podcasting. Yes, I'm flying home the day before the game. I'm not missing a beat. You won't be able to tell I'm in Italy, except maybe I'll flip some video on so you can see the backdrop and my wife ready to push me off the mountain. CR, appreciate the endurance as always here.
That was a fun marathon. We need every one of these once in a while just to show that we still got it.
Listen, we're with all the new patrons lately. We want to drop in a especially long one. We'll do the auto generate shorts from this episode in Riverside, and we'll get about 71 from an episode this long, which will be good. And that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jets, for waiting 97 minutes till after 4 o'clock to release the roster. I will talk to you soon.